Welcome to the Interprofessional Space podcast, where the spirit of inquiry meets healthcare collaboration. In our podcast, we discuss all things interprofessional education. According to the World Health Organization, interprofessional education, or IPE, is when students from at least two healthcare professions learn about, from, and with each other to improve health outcomes and enable effective collaboration.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our conversation with the team at the University of New Mexico as we explore Beyond the Borders, expanding the vision for IPE Honors. Anne and I were inspired by the way this program has been reimagined and energized. And in this episode, we'll look at where it's headed next, expanding opportunities, building collaborations across regions, and shaping the future of IPE. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, you'll find it in our episode list. And as always, more information about our guests and their work is in the show notes.
So I'm excited to talk to you about this IPE Honors Program, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time to discuss that. So I'm going to move on to my first question about that, if I may. So it's a huge undertaking, especially given the size of the institution that you're both in. Can you talk about what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so I think in terms of what inspired us to innovate the honors program is that our program actually wasn't working. And so we had a huge problem set. When I came in as the IPE director, we had been doing very certain things. We had this event in the fall with these two classes. We had that event in the spring with that class. We had some things that were extracurricular that students and faculty would volunteer to do. That was sort of a hit or miss. We did not have a I call it parting of the waters program, which is what most IPE programs at well-funded IPE programs have, is like, okay, all of these students take this course together and it happens on Wednesday mornings and all these faculty come in. And so everyone has that experience. We didn't have that. We did try to do that. It was actually a really innovative one semester, students from all of the different programs came together to do a curriculum. We did it one time. We got a grant to do it. I thought it was beautifully designed. It was before I was the director. So it was 2 years before I came in as the director. And it worked really well. But some of the content was repeated from a cohort of students. So there was a cohort of students that said, we've already learned this. We don't know why we have to learn this again. And that actually sunk that program. And so we ended up with, you remember, Todd, when I went on a listening tour with like all the people, all the stakeholders around the university, and one of our big educators and a person who was deeply involved with and supportive of the program said, we call you guys the crash test dummies. So they were saying, you try something and it just doesn't work. And so anytime that was, it was one person's perspective, and I don't think it was actually true, to be fair to the IPE program before we shifted it. But we had a reputation because of this, because of this thing that we had tried to do, where we didn't quite have all of the buy-in, and we didn't quite have the whole Tetris organized, right? We had a reputation of doing things that didn't work. And that was a really hard one to recover from. And it wasn't really anyone's fault. It was just ended up being the reputation, of the program, at least from one person's perspective. And because we inherited that, I think we recognized, like, with love, that the one thing is like, oh, you guys do IPE over there, so we don't have to do it. We weren't funded. We had some faculty time, but we didn't have a lot of funding. And so, we could only do little things, right? Because it was all we had the bandwidth for. And so, so what we ended up doing, just to kind of start the story, which Todd can probably wrap up better than I can, is we looked at, actually, even before that, we had some students that were really into IPE.
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say, we started talking to the students.
Yeah.
Like, so one of the key things is we started talking to the students, and we started asking them, what do you think of the current program? What is it that you like? What is it you don't like? Where would you like to see things change? What would you like to get out of it? We did a focus group. We took them across to the faculty staff club, right? So it's a little restaurant, on main campus, and we took them over and we bought them a nice lunch, and we said, hey, what do you want to get out of this? What would be the ideal program to you? And so they gave us a lot of answers, and then they said, well, it would be really cool if we got like an award to do this, or if we had a certificate. And that stuck. That was really the seed that stuck. They had a lot of great ideas, and we listened to that, and we were as empathetic as we could be, and we tried to really pick their brains as much as we could. Like what events, we went down to, like, okay, what events did you like? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? What worked for your schedule? All of those kinds of details. And then we came back, and then we did our coffee shop napkin series for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And we just brainstormed in the coffee shop there on campus. And we basically wrote out the honors program in the nutshell of it at the coffee shop. And then we started putting it together.
So can I ask a follow-up question? Because I've looked at the website, read the literature, and I'm very excited about the work that you've done. I'm very inspired. Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned, certificates for students. One of the mm-hmm. things I believe you also do is you offer them, upon request, a letter of recommendation.
Correct.
And I'm really curious about that. Can you talk? I'm curious about like how many students ask for it, and just talk to me about that.
So for this spring, this May graduation that we have, actually this Friday, so we had 2 students we have 74 graduating with honors this semester. Nice. And we have like 1,100 students actively enrolled. I'm just going to throw that in now. So it's a pretty big program. But we have 74 graduating this spring. We had 2 of them request that letter. And what the letter is it's signed by the director and myself. And what we do is we look at their record, what activities they did to fulfill the requirements. We look at their summative and the comments that they've made about what they learned and what it meant to them. And we go back and it's a bit of a form letter, if you will. But so we have the areas, we put the different things. They did these things. They say they've learned these things. And it's, it's based on their reflections. So what it does is it gives potential employers a little bit of more insight into who that person is that they're looking to hire. Are they going to be a good team member? Do they value teaming? Do they communicate well? Do they understand their place, their role? Did they understand basically the IPEC competencies, right? And so that's the basis of it. We do personalize it to the degree that we can, because that's really what this is. So we used to have more or a higher percentage of the students request that than we do now. I think that a lot of the students aren't requesting it because they already have jobs. So that's probably why they don't request it as much now. But those that are looking, or want it for the file or whatever, we offer it. We remind them. This has been the lowest. We normally do more. Yeah, and so Heidi can.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is when the medical students are applying for the residencies, they do that, as you guys know, in the
Dean's
fall.
letter.
So our the IPE coordinator from the School of Medicine, actually, we have the School of Medicine students finish their IPE requirements before other students if they want a letter of recommendation. So I think, Todd, one of the reasons we only have 2 is because all of the medical students actually already got their letters of recommendation for their residency programs, because they needed to, it's in an off time. And then I think you're right in terms of nursing. What folks are now super familiar with the IPE Honors Program, and so they can just say I graduated with this certificate in IPE Honors, and people get it because we've done a really good PR, particularly with the University of New Mexico hospital system. Everyone knows about our program, so that they know the students that have gone through the IPE program did above and beyond, right? So I think one of the things that I wanted to get back to about the design of the program, when we were talking about the coffee shop design, we designed it based on what the students said that they wanted to do and what was available for interprofessional kinds of activities. And of course, I always like naming things. And so, we branded it so that everything ended with an IVE, right? Like informative and interactive, like all of our categories kind of have electives so that A, we can remember them, and B, they're easier to communicate about. So when we were talking to the students, we were listening to things like, they would say, well, if I go to an interprofessional conference, can I get credit for that? Yes, right. Yes, you can. If I go to an outreach clinic that's interprofessional on my own time, can I get credit for that? What if I take an elective that is in another program that's inherently interprofessional? Can I get credit for that? So that's kind of how we started to put together the categories. And I know you guys are going to link to the document at the University of New Mexico. And, I think it's how we ended up figuring out, that like what is available. And then, in terms of the design, Todd was brilliant. Like, this is where you can only design something like this if you've got a registrar. So Todd, can you tell the story about like the bucket thing and how you actually innovated that? Because I actually think that is probably the coolest part about our program.
Well, and I'll say it's cool, but I think there's another cool part that we'll talk about later. But so we're all familiar with a degree audit. And so I just took that lens, I approached it with that lens of saying, okay, students have to do the requirements, right? And so we have to log those, and the categories, we had to decide, okay, how many sort of lunch events will satisfy the informative category, right? And so there's the 7 categories, and the students have to fulfill 5 of those category requirements, right? So not every student is going to have the opportunity to be an executive in an interprofessional club, or to innovate in a professional event, to create something new. Not every student's going to be able to do that, but they can do clinical experiences, they can do informative, they can do interactive things, they can do immunization clinics, they can go to the healthcare for the homeless and volunteer. They can do things that are interprofessional, and but they may not necessarily have the opportunity to do everything that we can offer. So they're required to do 5 of those 7 categories.
It's just like when we go to college, right? You meet with your advisor, and they're like, here are your core requirements to graduate.
Yeah.
You need to take 2 credits, 2 classes in your math core and 2 classes in your science core. So that's kind of how, Todd sort of, figured that piece out. And then we should also talk about how do we evaluate the students' experiences. Do you mind if I just dive into that? So,
Yeah.
So one of the things that I should call out, the interprofessional professionalism, the IPA tool, the interprofessional professionalism assessment tool, and the interprofessional professionalism community. When that document came out, I was absolutely floored. I was so happy to see a tool that is actually like the embodied behaviors. What is it that how are we in the world when we are really truly interprofessional, right? And what does that look like? And that, I think that particular, like, that was a game changer for me, because then all of a sudden it wasn't like, okay, I'm clicking off the IPEC categories. Okay, we exposed them to this. We exposed them to that. We're actually moving from what are the experiences that students are having with interprofessionalism in general. So like when we put a student in a clinical setting, it's, who knows? Some of it's super interprofessional and some of it is actually super not interprofessional, and it could be much better. So when we have the students in a setting that's like, it's not quite working, we have them fill out an assessment, which is actually like the learning that we're having them do, right? They're going through sort of the interprofessional professionalism assessment tool. We have it in different ways in our, we're happy to share that, but we have it in a wide variety of ways, and we're still figuring out what's the best way for us to assess the program. But the students, they read what it is to be interprofessional, really truly embody interprofessionalism, and then they're ranking their experience like based on that. So even if they're not getting a deeply interdisciplinary experience, we want that. And I'll tell you sort of like why we don't have it and what we're trying to do with that piece in just a second. But the students actually read about, this, I use the term embodied. I don't know if that's just the holistic nurse in me, like the embodied interprofessionalism, like how we actually bring it into the core of our being as a health professional. And they're reading that, and then they're sort of ranking their experience. And their experiences are, for the most part, pretty good, but not always.
Right.
But they're still learning. They're still looking critically at their experience and thinking about here's what we're looking for. Here's what I'm experiencing. And then they're giving us a little bit of some conversation points about, what that meant for them. One of the reasons that we ended up, one of the, like when we were designing the interprofessional education program and the honors program, one of the things we heard, and I know so many people who are listening to this will have heard this. Oh, we don't need to do IPE because we put our students in interprofessional clinics, and that's where they learn, interprofessional education. That's where they get it, right? But we aren't measuring it. Nobody's measuring that, right? So with this tool that we modified from the IPA tool, we are actually measuring their clinical experiences, and then we can pull those reports and give them to the School of Medicine, give them to the College of Nursing, and say, here's what the students are saying about this particular clinical site. We de-identify all of it so that it's, it's not the students' names aren't on there, but we're starting to catch enough information that we can give that chunked info back to the School of Medicine, and then they can go back to the clinical site and say, hey, our students are saying, that, this is an area
this is their experience
on, that kind of thing. And that's like the long game. That's the long game, right? The long game is how do we actually make our systems better? How do we make our clinical placements better? And as we are gathering this information over time, it's our hope, we'll see how it goes, keep our fingers crossed, that those sites will be like, oh, we could do this better. Our students want to see this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's part of the research. So all that data is part of the research I was talking about earlier. We have that data that we can inform whoever needs to hear it. But yeah, so the reflective learning is one of the 3 learning theories. And that's what the students are doing when they're like, okay, this is what I experienced. This is what I saw. So they're reflecting on their experience and they're understanding, okay, it should be this way, or ideally I thought it would be this way. This is what I actually experienced. And then they do some sense making, and that's the reflective learning theory, right? So that's the big learning theory that this is based on. And so that's where that comes in. All of those surveys come into REDCap, which is a research software you guys most people know, and then we pull those down from REDCap. We can pull the variety of the results. So
okay, so you both mentioned reflection, and I just think that that's such an important part of learning. That's where the learning happens, right? It's in a debrief, in your debrief from a simulation. That's where the links are made. That's where the learning occurs. Correct. It's very exciting. I'm curious what feedback you get from students about the process or the outcomes of that reflective process. What do you hear from students about that?
So honestly, I hear different things. And so not everybody's a fan of that. Most people are, though. And most people see the value. When quite honestly, from faculty, I've heard, and I'll answer your question, but I just want to mention that there was a little bit of pushback from some faculty thinking about, well, it's just a reflection. Those are, what we call smile sheets, I guess, in education, right? So, I had a great time and, whatever. And it's just like this 3-minute thing after to make everybody feel good. Well, these are not that. I mean, these really are in depth, as Heidi was talking about. And the students, I asked them point blank, they come in the office, I'm like, hey, so what do you think of the surveys? What do you think? I ask them point blank, and they're like, it really made me think about it. And so the longer this goes, the more positive feedback I'm getting from the students. In the beginning, I don't know what it was. I think students were a little unsure, but now that it's a more established program, and the students talk, right? And we all know they do, right? And so they talk to each other about it now. And they're like, oh yeah, you and the honors, and that reflects. So they want to learn, and they want to be better, which is really a happy coincidence, right? I mean, like if they didn't, this would be very, very difficult and very different. But they want to get the most out of it, and so I asked, like this week, because I've had a lot of students come in to get their cords and certificates and letters, and they were saying, I've asked a lot of them, and they're like, yeah, we really like the reflection. It's really made a difference for in what the one comment I had is well, we started this. So as you know, this, if you do a 2-year program or a 4-year program, this honors program is flexible. It works with all of those links of programs. That was another feature that made it really successful. But yeah, I started these a while ago, and I'm liking them more and more. So that's the feedback I'm personally getting from the students, and more in the last year. I would say that I'm hearing more that, yeah, I started this earlier and now I really like it. So I don't know what the phenomenon is there, but it just feels like things have kind of shifted, that we have so many students and they're kind of getting into it a little bit, and they're kind of they're talking with which was the whole point. That was the whole point. So it's kind of working. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
I'll just add one other, talking point that we have with the students is, just like we were talking about, not all of their experiences are all that
Right.
interprofessional, right?
Right.
And so even stuff that we do periodically, like we try to be perfect, but sometimes it just doesn't work all that well, right? And the students are like, but that wasn't super interprofessional, and I feel bad telling you that because we like you guys. We're like, no. What we're trying to do is get all of us to think about how do we do this better. So the fact that we're all pointing out where things aren't working and then thinking about how do we actually help them work, that's actually the work of really building interprofessionalism into our health systems. And when you then when you like say to the student, you're the one who's actually going to be doing this work, like, and you probably know even more deeply than we do what is going to be needed going forward, the student becomes the expert, right? The student becomes, and they take responsibility for their own learning and what they care about. And so, the students, they do, for the most part, like the reflections. I think the ones who don't like the reflections are the ones who get stressed that they're going to get a B because it wasn't very interprofessional, right? And then when you tell them, like, no, you need to like slam this thing. It's fine, because that's just as much learning as had it been super interdisciplinary. But I do want to say, reading the reflections is one of the best things that we can do as IPE faculty. And, we need to do a better job at that. Todd reads them, I read them, the directors read them. We definitely read them as we're writing their letters of recommendation and thinking through what was that student's specific experiences. We get reflections on all of our IPE offerings, right? And so then we cache those. So we pull all the data. So let's say we do an event that we're doing. So not just like a clinical or a one-off, right? Like we pull the reflections for stuff that's actually organized across programs. And then we give the faculty that feedback, and we write the faculty a letter so that the faculty can then in their faculty profile for promotion, they can say, I did these IPE program, this IPE programming. Here was the student feedback, the teaching feedback, right? What we really want to do is start to get interprofessional education as a part of promotion, right? And it doesn't have to be obligatory, but that it's a recognized, part of what faculty can do to get promoted around, like in nursing, we don't have tenure track, and we can pick between, all of the different like areas, but teaching is one of the areas that we have to get promoted on. And so, we're starting to try to infiltrate that system. Everything takes a while. It's crazy. It always takes a while, but that's one of the other reasons why those reflections are so incredibly valuable, is they actually tell us how to do our job better next time.
Well, and you're growing reflective practitioners, right?
Yes.
And every healthcare team member should be reflective.
And we should all read the book.
So I've got a quick question, because I don't know if I missed it, but what year did you guys start the honors program?
Oh, gee.
We started it right before the pandemic. I think the pandemic was the
19.
Yeah, so I think we innovated it in 19.
Yeah.
We implemented it in 20. I feel like we had
our first grads were in 20.
Were they in 20 or 21? Oh, you're asking two old people to remember 5 years ago. I don't really know how to do that.
I should have that data. I can get you that data if you want.
I think it's in that article.
Curious. Yeah, no, that's fine. My other question is around, you said that previously the IPE program, they're saying, we don't think your stuff works. What did it take to convince them to say, yes, this honors program sounds like a great idea, and we want to support you in making this happen?
There's a few things. One is the students.
Yeah.
The students' feedback telling them that was one of the bigger things. I think that to be honest, that we're still there. The longevity has helped. And more fun.
Oh yeah, the fun part cannot be underestimated. But I will say, the reporting, because we're actually gathering QI data on everything that we're doing, even if not all of the College of Nursing students are participating in honors, we have a chunk of them who are. And what we can do is we can say, here's what the nursing students are experiencing that's already embedded in the College of Nursing programming. And so we can, because, there's stuff in honors that's already in our programs, and we're giving the students credit for stuff that they already have to do because they are filling out the reflective survey. So the things that are already happening in medicine, pharmacy, nursing that are interprofessional, the students who are participating in honors are filling out these reflections on those. So let's say we get 10% of the students are filling out the reflection, but all 100%, all students are doing the thing. We can give that information to the College of Nursing, the College of Pharmacy, School of Medicine, and they can use that in their reporting for accreditation for IPE, because they can say, we did this. Yeah. Here's the feedback that we got from the students who were participating in it that had to fill out the survey because they were in honors. And this is what they're saying about this program. And so I think the programs actually really appreciate it. And I know for us, at one point, kind of early on, it was actually funny because we didn't actually have the capacity, but we had the vision. And the Associate Dean of Education for the College of Nursing, remember when Kristen Ostrom, she was like, all of the College of Nursing is going to participate in honors. And Todd and I were like, oh yeah, well, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
But we try to pilot with it, and we had all of the students enroll, and students enroll. Todd was saying we have 1,100 students that are enrolled in honors. That means we have 1,100 students on our email list, 1,100 students that know about us and have been oriented. Not everybody finishes honors, but it doesn't matter because, it's cool, and we want them to finish honors. But we're gathering when they do things, even if they don't do all of the things and they don't actually graduate with honors, we're still gathering the survey data for the stuff that they are doing. So if there's something embedded in the College of Nursing, they enroll in the IPE Honors Program, they fill out the survey for that event, we're getting that data. And so that's one of the, we want to have 300, 400 students graduating with honors every year. But we're still getting all the data, and we're able to then still do the quality improvement, give the reports back, talk about what the faculty are doing that's cool. So it kind of meets the needs of what we needed to do as an IPE program for the whole school. Because, people are always like, well, why can't you just embed this into the program? And it's like, well, we could. If you gave us, $10 million and somebody who parted the waters, we could totally do this, right? We could nail it. But because we can't, because we don't have that funding, it's not how our office is organized. We kind of hacked the back end. What do we need to do to show what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, so that we can improve that from a programmatic standpoint? And then, having the students say, I want a certificate. And Todd mentioned, the honors cords. We give the students honors cords, and we should say we give them, a red cord for health professions, right? And a green cord. So they get a red and green cord because in New Mexico, our official state question is what kind of chili, and it's either red or green. And so red and green is a New Mexico thing. So we, and the students love it. They come in and they're like, can I have my honors cords? And they graduate with 1,000 things around their necks, but it's really fun to see, the students as they're proceeding through graduation with their, we call it Christmas when you order red and green together with their Christmas cards.
Comes to me something that you said, Heidi, is even for those students that are not completing the program but have participated here, you're planting those seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we can underestimate, right, the ripples from those seeds. That's a terrible analogy. They don't go together at all. But the idea that even in what they learn in those moments that maybe don't result in honors, where does that end up and how does that ultimately influence them in their practice? So that's really exciting.
Well, and the other part of it is it's not required, right? So there's this other thing, and I've thought about this a lot. If we could have a big, huge grant, and we did have a lot of money, and we could require it for all the students, I'm not sure we'd get the results because this is voluntary. And the students that are doing it want to do it and they want to learn. So anything that's required, there's also that negative component that comes with it, where we're pretty much just getting all the positive, and that's helping us grow. And so I feel like because of the way it is, maybe beneficial, although we wish all of the students were involved, they're not, but the ones that really want to are. And so that makes it better. And I think it makes it better for the students that are doing it too, because they're in with like-minded students. Mm-hmm. And so there's no, if you will, the negative Nelly types of, oh, we have to do this. There's none of that. These students are all wanting to do this and all getting energy and knowledge and learning from it. And so that just, actually, I think that's part of the success. And in the, I was going to say, I mentioned earlier, and Heidi already said part of it, but I think one of the brilliant pieces of this whole thing that made it work was that we said, yes, you're already doing these things. We want you to get some credit for it, but we want you to look at it from the IPE lens. So they're already doing, so it just sort of, that's what's brilliant about it. And then, so it's brilliant for the students and the faculty and the deans, right? Because we're recognizing you're already doing all of this, or you're doing some of this. Why not just do a little more, okay, right? And so that's the brilliant part, is you're already doing this. We're just asking you to look at it through the IPE lens a little bit more and a little bit clearer, and tell us what you think about it. Yeah. That's actually one of the major parts of it that makes it a success.
Yeah. I think I'll just add two things as I'm thinking about them is, one of the things is students come in, to nursing and medicine and, any field, right? Community and regional planning, nutrition, because there's work that they want to do that's useful and helpful in the world. And as students, they want to be doing that work. They don't want to just sit in a classroom, right? They want to actually be out innovating. And so because we have designed something inside of IPE for collaboration and innovation, and we have a system where students can find each other, because we have 1,100 of them on email, and we have quarterly meetings that they're invited to where people are just talking about cool stuff that they're doing and other people can get involved and all of that. Like, it's a little bit like, we had at one point wanted to do, we feel like we're a dating service, right? Like we're, students in pharmacy will be like, we really want to do this thing. And like, we'll go find the students for them that want to do that thing with them. So, students have built, flu vaccine clinics. They've built vaccine literacy programs. They've built pipeline education programs. So they've gone out and like educated the next generation about what it means to come into health professions. They've done student support. We've had one of the fun things that we've done is the physical therapy. I don't know if it's like this on anybody else's campus, but at lunch, the physical therapy students play in the yard in between all of the programs. We have like a big grassy field, and unless it's snowing, and sometimes when it's snowing, they're out playing a hacky sack, or they're playing with like their PT equipment. They've got the bouncing balls and they're doing all these things. And the rest of us are just like hunkered down with like the weight of textbooks, like hurrying between, things, and like studying and drinking too much coffee. And the PT students are just out like the vision of health. So we actually asked those PT students, like, could you actually invite the other students and we'll give them credit to play with you? So we actually have IPE play days at lunch now, and students can and the PT students actually teach them, like, this game is good for this kind of balance or that kind of coordination, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they get to, play at lunch, and we give them credit. So, the fact that we can do like super fun, things like that, I think is one of the benefits of the program. And the other one is about, we have the executive category, right? So that's really about leadership, and how do we embody leadership, within this vibe of interdisciplinary collaboration. So our health sciences student council, all of the student council members get credit for being IPE credit. So all of those students, they enroll, they get a whole category of credit for their work as, in student council. And we had a group of students who really wanted, this was years ago, really wanted to help improve one area of our curriculum that was happening across nursing, pharmacy, and medicine. And a group of students actually designed a curriculum that is, it's a half day, it's on Zoom, it's 300 and some students, it happens every year in January, and it's about how do we create spaces in healthcare clinics that are safe for people who are, are moving in with their gender, right? So we call it Transgender 101, and it's about the theories, the philosophies, a little bit of the, the medicine, the guidelines, kind of how to talk to, how to be in a clinical setting, how to create safe spaces for people to move with gender. And that's been, that was student designed. They designed the entire curriculum, and the faculty, we have to have like 30 faculty every year, and the faculty all come in, they're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm not an expert, I can't help. And we're like, you are coming because we're going to teach you how to do it. Because the students are leading this and they're leading us. And so that's also been one of the really cool things that we've done.
I don't think we have enough time to do full justice to the innovative and incredible IPE Honors program that you have. So we will link resources in the show notes, including your contact information, because I suspect people besides me will be reaching out for more information. And so what we'd like to do now is to move on to our closing questions. And I don't know if this is something that is just sort of near and dear to my heart. If you've ever watched the show The Inside the Actor's Studio, where they ask these pivot questions. So this series of questions is inspired by that. And you're welcome to not answer them, move on. You can both answer the same question. It's entirely up to you. But I found them to be not just entertaining, but also really insightful. So question number one, what is one thing about your own work that you do that you wish other team members knew?
I'm going to just use this as an opportunity to talk about the work I'm doing with the Planetary Health Alliance. So
Please
the Planetary Health Alliance is a interdisciplinary community that's global. There's hubs all over the world. That's coming together to look at the complex, wicked problem sets of the planetary scale ecological determinants of health. So climate change and the health impacts of climate change is one of them. Global air, land, and water pollution is one. Biogeochemical flow changes, how we use land and land cover. There's 8 or 9, depending on which model you're looking at, that are these sort of bigger planetary scale issues that are really really directing our health now. right? Like, we are all being impacted by these, we're impacted by all the social determinants of health, and we are being impacted by these sort of planetary scale ecological systems. And as we are looking at that level, and we are all collectively experiencing this, as we are looking at that level of problem set, healthcare professionals very specifically have an incredible opportunity to contribute deeply in that work, because we can narrate, how does this actually impact us as individuals, impact our communities? What does health and well-being and flourishing look like in the future? And when we, for me, so getting involved in the Planetary Health Alliance means that I'm hanging out with like farmers. I'm hanging out with local governments and leadership. I'm hanging out with business people who are doing, sustainable development. I'm hanging out with economists, and bringing all of those narratives into what I'm doing in nursing, and what the values are in nursing, and how I'm bringing nursing into the Planetary Health Alliance work. Me and a bunch of other, really awesome nurses are really, we're contributing quite a bit. So I think, that's an example of how do we really come together across disciplines to work on these problems that we're all being impacted by. So thank you for letting me pivot and my Inside Actor Studio to Planetary Health Alliance work I'm doing.
Love that. And your contact information will be in the show notes. So for folks who are interested in learning more, certainly they will be able to reach out to you. I'm curious, Todd, is there something that you would say that people don't know about the work that you do?
I think there's this general thought that things just happen in a box, sort of the Amazon model. And I think for me, I just wish leadership knew that it's not as straightforward a lot of times as it seems it is. So when we do a good job, it's that we don't get recognized, right? And I think that's true that's cross-cutting. And I just feel like that you only sometimes our jobs only get recognized when there's a problem. And I just wish that there was a way that everybody knew the work that went into all the jobs, because I think we all have a better appreciation for what everybody does.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but
that's a great answer.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Great answer.
Todd, I just want to recognize, I think you're doing an incredible job at the University of New Mexico. Although I am not in leadership.
Thank you, Heidi. Somebody knows.
But I do think that is a responsibility that we want to think about, and like how, we're facilitating the development of the next generation of leaders in all of our systems. And these sensibilities of how do we come together with all of our energy and creativity, and how do we get things done in beautiful ways, and how do we listen to each other? How do we build relationship before task, which is like, that's the tattoo that we're going to design for the IPE program, relationship before task, which is not ours. We got that from the Rockwood Institute. But this idea of like, we really do need to see and recognize the work that we're all doing. Because when people feel heard, then they listen, right?
So a little bit of a shift from that. So what is your favorite word around interprofessional working that you'd like to share with everyone?
I'm going to say, like, the first thing that popped into my head was shared decision making, which I think is really a theoretical framework, a way of moving, a way of being. It's not just, hey, I think we should do this. Do you agree? Right? It's really, it takes time to do shared decision making. Again, it brings it back to the relationship before task. We need to understand, what is it that we're valuing? What do we care about? What perspectives are we coming in from? And then how does that shape and form what we think we need to be doing? And then how do we pause where we are coming from in our, frame of reference and what we think our role is, and listen to the other people that are wrapping their brains around the same problem set, and then really try to move in those spaces. So I think shared decision making would be my answer to your question.
If there's one word, and I think it's all kind of the same thing, but true collaboration, because I think sometimes we think we're collaborating, but we're really not. And there's that listening part of it. I think it's a lot similar to what Heidi was saying, but that was the first word that came to my mind was true. Well, collaboration, but that's but I really think that true collaboration it's my favorite thing about IPE.
Okay. What is a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt?
Social work.
Okay.
Yeah. I just feel like I could make a little bit bigger impact at this on people, towards the end of my career here. So that would be something that would be of interest to me.
Heidi?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been really trying to think about for myself creativity and how do I nurture mine, and then how do we nurture each other's creativity? Creativity is something that I feel like I really care about. So I'm going to say, creative arts.
Oh, okay.
Is there something on the other end of the spectrum? Is something that you just would not want to do? You're like, that is not for me.
I could never be a nurse. I could never, ever, ever be a nurse.
Okay, I have been going through a lot recently with some family and being in the healthcare system. I would not want to be a hospital administrator.
Okay, I think this is a little lighter. What is a sound or a noise that you love?
I love the roar of my motorcycle.
Oh,
I love that sound.
what kind of bike do you have, Todd?
I have a KTM. I have a it's a KTM 890.
Nice. I sold mine a few years ago, my motorcycle. So yeah, ride safe. How about you, Heidi?
So I am a first generation New Mexican. So I was born and raised here in New Mexico. And so actually the sound of rain is something that is so welcome and loved. Every time it rains in New Mexico, the experience that we all have is, right, just wow, it's raining. There is nothing better than rain in New Mexico. And I love the sound of it. And we were blessed with an entire week of rain last week. And it was so nourishing. So yeah, so the sound of rain.
I even rode my motorcycle in the rain last week, and it was awesome.
Wait a minute, isn't that a Billy Joel song?
You don't get to do that so often here.
Yeah, well, being in England, I think I'm like more of an everyday thing.
Yeah.
It's not novelty. Okay, so what is one career that you imagined doing when you were a child?
I was going to be an attorney. I was dead on going to law school. I worked for a law firm and changed my mind. I did a summer internship, and I'm like, no, I want to help people. So that was mine, and it took a year to figure out that I still didn't know what I wanted to do after that.
As a child, I really wanted, and I'm just waiting for this to happen. For me, I really wanted to be like I don't know if you remember the movie Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John, but I wanted to be a roller skating dancer. So I'm just gonna say it hasn't happened for me yet, but I'm still holding out hope that I will be a professional roller skater.
Love it. That and your desire with creative arts, it's all going to come together. I can see it happening.
Be like interpretive dance.
There you go.
Interpretive roller skating. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, there it is. What is a book you're currently reading or one that you would recommend?
So I'm not currently reading any books because I'm too busy.
Right.
But I do recommend The Reflective Practitioner. We mentioned that earlier. I do recommend that to everybody.
The most recent book that made it to my house is a book that I haven't read yet called The Pedagogy of Kindness. And I do actually like Todd. I kind of geek out on education theory. And so I'll let you know how that one goes. But I am actually loving the Amy Tan Bird Chronicles book, where she during the pandemic, she started learning how to draw and bird. And then she created these little stories and drew these pictures of the birds in her backyard as if it was a soap opera. So I am enjoying that. And what's great is I have very little attention span. And so it's one of those books where you don't actually have to remember what the birds were doing in the first chapter. You can just read the second or the third chapter and what those birds are doing. So that.
Oh, that sounds fun. I like that.
It does sound fun. So that wraps up our questions. And I just want to say thank you to both of you for your generous sharing of your time and your talents, your knowledge, and your inspiration, frankly. I'm absolutely inspired. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. JJ, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and I've loved hearing about your program and everything that you're doing. So
you guys, thank you so much. It's really, it's so nice to have an opportunity to talk about this stuff that Todd and I just love talking about. So thank you for seeing it. Thank you for noticing. And if there's something specific that you would like us to actually put together, like a tutorial, how the honors program works or something like that, just let us know. I'm sure we can figure something out so that, we really do want people to take what we've innovated and work with it, because we do think this is actually a great way for programs that don't have the parting of the waters funding to really love and encourage the next generation in interprofessional collaboration.
The other piece of that is we really want to form partnerships. So Susie and I are currently talking about that. If we can pull it off, we're going to try. But we would like to have other IPE programs partner with us and expand opportunities for all of our students. So obviously online, but we would like to partner and to have some sort of way to award honors back and forth. We're gonna do it. I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like, but we're gonna do it. And but I think the main thing is that it would be really helpful for y'all students to see and to work with some of our students and vice versa. And I think that actually would bring a lot more energy to all the programs. And so we're going to do it. It's that. Okay. All right, Heidi. Thanks. We'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
But that's really what we want to do. And that's really the stage we're at now, is we have about the right size student body at UNM. And so it'll grow a little, but we don't want all the students. We do, but we don't, because we want the students that want to do it. and that's somewhat less than half of our health sciences. So, but what we want to do is expand opportunities for them to get a different look at, say, the UK system, for instance, for your students to see our system, right? And there's good things about both.
And even across states, because I was telling Ann, like Maine versus New Mexico, that's going to be very different. What you're.
Well, yeah, I was gonna tell you next week, but I think we're gonna bring on Texas Tech Medical Center, which is in Lubbock, Texas. But Texas is a whole nother country, right? you know what I mean?
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, even that, right? Like, and so
because they're right next door to you. Like,
yeah, it's a 5-hour drive. From Albuquerque. So, well, yeah, but it's a bordering state. Yeah.
But
the cultural components of our state, I mean, we have a border with Mexico. We have the Native American reservations, and those are borders. And so we have a big cultural component at UNM that.
So state of Maine borders with Canada, and we have native population absolutely as well.
It's the same. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's some similarities there. Yeah.
That would be really cool. So, I mean, ideally what we want to do is form a collaborative, if you will, for the honors program, so that maybe, and your students can be in our, like, we can do a joint thing. And you read the paper where, like, the honor, like, Heidi got the colors backwards, but the green is the health professions color for chords, and the red is our school's main color. So whatever your school's main color, it would be green, and that your school's main color for the chords. I don't know, like, there's just like some logistics that, like, what I think about, like, we can make it happen. Like, we can do it.
Before we sign off, we want to remind you, whether you're a student, a practitioner, or an educator, the work you do is important, and it can be very stressful, but you are not alone. Please take care of yourself. Let's take care of each other, and we hope you can join us again soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the iSpace podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us bring you more great content. Stay tuned for our next episode.